The Black Ship Side Story. What's the job? Chapter 5. The first thing Nico did the moment they returned to the Silent Runner was pull up the map of Volantis and upload the data given to him. All right, we have about 2 hours before Lord Tegan wakes up with a splitting headache and a bad attitude, Nico explained as the rest of the group gathered around the map. I don't know, Captain. Myra voiced her worry, the tone evident. I see what you were going for. But Tegan will probably send security forces straight to the Staples home once he wakes up. We could find ourselves tangling with half of Volantis in no time, even if they are also looking for every Tigan on the planet. I don't like our chances if the local big shots and their dogs come bearing fangs at us. That's why we're going right now, during the night, the captain said, zooming in on their target's home. At this time of day, the whole family should be tucked into bed. Should be an easy pickup. Then, while we are leaving, the security forces will turn up empty and pursue the Tigans and their escorts even more fiercely when they see the Tigan ship is still docked at the starport. By the time they realize there was a third party and get the bright idea to lock down Volantis space, we'll be long gone with the prize firmly secured in our hands. Huh, Kartok huffed. Clever! Every now and again, Nico fired back with a grin. Wait. Once House Arante realizes the Tegans don't have anything on the Staples, they'll be on the hunt for us, Myra objected further. Which is why, while you were driving us back to the ship, I took the liberty of having copies of the target location made to be hand-delivered to multiple Tigan locations. Both at that lodge we saw them earlier and their docked ship. So when House Arantes comes knocking, they'll find the exact information we captured planted on the Tigans, Nico said with an ever-growing smile taking over his face. Clever, Ada mirrored with a mischievous smirk to Kartok and Nico. And the surveillance footage of us coming and going from the starport as well? Myra continued with a still, as of yet unconvinced, raised eyebrow. Nico snapped his fingers. Amara? The AI personality suddenly appeared on the holo projector and bowed before revealing a rather cocky-looking smirk. All taken care of, Captain. The logs are set to auto-delete 30 seconds after our departure. Myra sighed, but with resignation, also smiled while looking around briefly at the others. Fine, you got me, she finally conceded playfully before adding with a grin. Clever. Great, Nico said victoriously. Now let's go pick us up some office supplies. Looking back at the map, his eyes narrowed. We'll have to set the ship down here in this large clearing. Ada, Kartok, and I will go in the transport. Myra, I want you in the tilt rotor with a few drones to turn away any vehicle heading toward that house. Fortunately, these people seem to live out in the sticks, so I doubt we'll have any issues there. Any questions? What about the local wildlife? Kartok asked. It looks like we'll have to go through a fair amount of wilderness. Anything big we have to worry about? The captain suddenly looked disappointed. Really? Wildlife? We are packing military-grade weaponry, and you're genuinely concerned about the local fauna? Hey now, don't tell me you've forgotten about Setau 4 and that what's-its-name that came up and bit you in your hindquarters. I don't feel like having to patch you up again. All right, I get it. Thanks, Nico finally yielded with a playful roll of his eyes. Amara, do you have anything for us on local fauna that could be a problem? Not too terribly much, Captain. Though it does seem like there is a large flightless predatory-type bird in that area called Clixal, ranging from 2 to 2.5 meters tall. A powerful beak and razor-sharp claws on its feet. Fiercely territorial, but dumb as a box of rocks. Stay away from their nests, and you should be fine, Amara clarified. And are their nests close to our projected pathway? Nico asked for good measure. They are technically out of the way, but not too far off, Amara said, resting one arm on the other while gripping her chin thoughtfully. I would simply suggest moving quickly, and theoretically you'd be fine. Sounds good. Thank you, Amara. My pleasure, Captain, she said with one of her playful flourishes before disappearing. Anyone else? Nico asked a bit sarcastically. No? Very well. You two go get the transport prepped, and you go get our air support ready, he finished, handing out the assignments to everyone as he spun back around to fly the ship. Meanwhile, close to the Staple abode, a man was sitting in a high perch he had made in a nearby tree. Through his rifle scope, he dutifully scanned the area, making sure the property was clear and safe. He rolled his stiff right shoulder before the snapping of a twig drew his attention instantly. The agent frowned when nothing was readily visible. Instead, he switched over to his infrared goggles. Still nothing. Too many damn animals out here. He complained quietly as he resumed his vigil. As the hours ever so slowly ticked by and the moon rose high in the sky, the man eventually watched as the commoner family finished their daily activities and finally went to bed for the night. As all but a couple of porch lights went out, he shivered as the surprisingly chilly air of the night touched his exposed skin. The one thing he didn't have to worry about was falling asleep. Having only recently been assigned to this world, every noise and animal call was foreign to his ears and required investigating. After hours of false alarms at the end of a very long day, however, even his endurance was beginning to falter. The man was just about to call it a night, ready to set up his automated surveillance sensors, when something new happened. Peering into the starry sky, a small object caught his eye. At first, he thought it was an overly large satellite moving peacefully in orbit. He was surprised to see the object steadily growing in size, revealing itself to be a not insignificant-sized vessel approaching from not more than a dozen kilometers away. Hastily, the agent reviewed a map in his mind. His brow furrowed as he realized there was nothing in that direction to bring a ship down that way. Only wilderness dominated in large part by those damnable large avian animals that roamed it. Immediately, he concluded that there were only two realistic possibilities for a ship to make what was likely to be a hasty landing. They were either incredibly bold smugglers willing to make a quick drop, or someone was coming for the staples. The man immediately packed up his gear and climbed down the tree, pausing just long enough to check for any lurking Clixall trying to eat him. He'd only been on Volantis for a few days, but he'd already developed a healthy hatred toward those stupid things. Satisfied, he quickly made his way back to his transport. Just as he was reaching for the door, his trained eye caught something leaning against the back of his vehicle that made the hairs on the back of his neck instantly stand on end. A simple cane. The agent's hand instantly dropped for his pistol when the telltale sound of a laser rifle powering up reached his ears. No. You won't be needing that, lad, warned a serious voice in a deadly low tone. Now lay down your gear and drop your gun belt, nice and slow. I strongly suggest you don't try anything funny. I'd bet you my cane I can still drop you faster than you can turn around and draw. The agent remained silent and slowly did as he was ordered. There's a good lad. Raise your hands up nice and high. Now how about you tell me why you are taking such a keen interest in my neighbors? The voice inquired. The man's mind raced with a myriad of questions as he processed the information available to him. Who was he? A neighbor, that much was obvious through admission. But who? Voice was deep, experienced, rigid. Male. Age? Needs a cane, old. Odds of carrying out threats? High. Was able to sneak in undetected despite age. Implication? Auxilia, retired, possibly a higher rank earned through experience. Loyalty affiliation? Chance of royal leanings high if protecting the staples. There was only one answer. He sighed deeply before answering, I'm an agent assigned to keep the staples safe, Warlow Pincer. Mr. Warlow laughed. So you know my name, eh? First time out in the field, my lord? He mocked, doubting the story very much. I find it hard to believe an agent could let an old man like me get the jump on him. The agent growled internally at the disrespect being shown, but decided keeping a cool head was better than getting it shot off. Out of idle curiosity, how did you even know I was out here? Mr. Warlow raised an unimpressed eyebrow. You're the supposed agent. You tell me. The agent thought for a moment and finally smirked. The chewed monitoring device. That was you and not some animal, wasn't it? The elderly gentleman grinned and huffed. Well, at least you're a quick study. Little tricks one learns through a dozen worlds and colonies. I can show you my identification if you permit me to turn around, commoner, he offered with just a hint of defiance. Go on, then. Mr. Warlow agreed after a moment's thought. The agent nodded, turning around slowly before reaching into his pocket for his identification. There. Just as I said, the agent added, almost smugly as he got his first look at the man a few meters away. Mr. Warlow gave a little huff after examining his ID. Even if that's real, I suppose the question now is, whose agent are you? Do you presume you can continue threatening an agent with impunity, commoner? Asked the agent as he was growing increasingly impatient. Presently, I'm the one with the rifle aimed at your face. I'm the one with the ability to make sure nobody could ever find your body again. And if they do, it would be as the remnants of a Clixall meal, my lord. Mr. Warlow said with an unnervingly pleasant smile. The color momentarily drained away from the agent's face as he realized this commoner wasn't backing down. Not only that, but he was right. It wouldn't be hard to dispose of his corpse out here in this wild backwater of a largely backwater colony-level planet. Defeated and cornered, he sighed. "I'm a loyal servant to the true ruler of the principality, the Prince of House Astor," he finally declared with conviction. "And if you value your neighbors so highly, you will let me go to their aid. Those retro thrusters you probably heard a few minutes ago? They're from a ship I just saw dropping in to land in a clearing to the northeast." His tone shifted to that of a man imploring rather than demanding. "I suspect them to be enemy operatives attempting to abduct the family. That's why I was rushing back to my transport, so I could intercept them before it's too late." Mr. Warlow's mocking expression slowly began to shift to one of a man putting the pieces together. "Abduct? Assassinate would have sounded more dramatic, don't you think?" The agent shook his head. "No. Assassination is a distant possibility. They're worth far more alive." He then tilted his head curiously. "And I suspect that a seasoned man such as yourself knows why. Why else would you attend to their home regularly?" Mr. Warlow frowned, but said nothing further. "You may not trust me, but both you and I share the goal of protecting the family of Baron Staples by the will of His Majesty, the Prince. Come with me, Warlow Pincer." "Help me!" "You know the area better than I do, and they trust you." "I could use that," he pleaded, willing to try anything to not waste any more valuable time. There was a long, pregnant silence that passed between them before Mr. Warlow finally gestured with his rifle for the agent to back away. The agent frowned, but did as he was instructed to do. Once he was far enough away, the elderly gentleman reached down and grabbed the agent's weapons, eventually moving over to grab his cane. All the while, he never took his eyes off the younger man. "Grab your gear." "Let's go, Agent," Mr. Warlow asked curiously. The agent blinked once. "Smith." "Agent Smith," the agent said with a smile as he slowly moved to grab the rest of his gear. "For the record, if I were here to kill the Staples, they would already be dead." Warlow narrowed his eyes, gripping his cane tightly. A few seconds later, the pair hopped into the vehicle at the same time. Their tenuous alliance formed. Back at the lodge, a glass of fine wine shattered into a million pieces inside a massive stone fireplace, causing it to erupt in a firestorm of flames for a moment. "We have been here on this wretched planet for several days already, and still our people haven't been able to find the Wolfhound's family," Din growled angrily as he stared into the slowly dying embers. "Patience, dear brother," said Gertrude, as she held a cold glass containing a fruity alcoholic beverage to her head in an attempt to nurse the headache building from her brother's whining. "It's not like they are being hidden. We just have to let our men work through the lackluster records of this backwater. Favored by that usurper baron they may be, but they are still commoners. There are so many of their filth to sort through. At least you get to go have some fun with your hunts. We're stuck here in this dreary little lodge," Hannah piped up to complain in between reading a book. "Hey, we said you could come along with us," Joran said, taking a small snipe at his cousin while a smug grin took over his face as he set up his next shot on the billiards table, to which she simply stuck her tongue out at him. Ignoring the petty back-and-forths of his cousins, Din looked at Gertrude. "Except we don't have time to wait. We aren't the only house looking for the Staples, but we are the only house risking peace in neutral territory to get them first. The more houses locate them before us, the harder it becomes to get them off this sorry world. Or are you willing to let others claim high honors and glory that so rightfully belong to us?" He finished in a louder tone as he opened the question up to all his family in the room. It was these words that garnered the attention of all his relations in the room. "So what do you propose we do?" asked Cervante, who had been watching the billiards game. "I propose we—" Din's words were cut off when a hard knock at the door captured their attention. "Enter!" he instead bellowed to whoever was on the other side of the door. A young servant entered the gaming hall and bowed low before the nobles. "I beg your pardon, my lords and ladies, but an urgent dispatch arrived for you not 5 minutes ago." Din was the first to walk over as he snatched the data chit from the servant and stared at the item with a confused expression. "Who sent this?" "I don't rightly know, my lord," the servant said sheepishly. There was no name attached to the dispatch, just a note that said, "Please deliver to my lords and ladies of House Tygan with all possible speed. Honor prevails in strength." By this point, a few of the Tigans had made their way over to look at the item that had been delivered to them, while Din nodded and curtly waved the servant away, who quickly bowed and left the room. Gertrude stared at the item a long while before looking at her brother. Were we expecting any dispatches from our people tonight? No. All units were ordered to stand down for the night and start fresh in the morning, Din said, curiously thumbing the item in his hand. Joran called over from the table. Maybe instead of staring at the damn thing, you should open it and see what it contains. He then proceeded to continue playing, trying to appear uninterested. Din frowned but grabbed a nearby datapad and inserted the data chit. As the device came to life, his mouth dropped open in surprise. This is it! He stuttered as images of the family and their location scrolled across the screen. The man's face lit up with joy as Gertrude ripped the device from his hands to look it over for herself. Even Joran, at this point, abandoned his game to see what was so exciting. "We have them!" Din exclaimed, grabbing a fresh glass and pouring himself more wine. His eyes shimmered for a moment, and soon one of his loyal retainers entered the room. "Yes, my lord," the new arrival called out while taking a knee out of respect for his liege. "Rouse the men we have here. All of them. An informant has just delivered to us what we've been waiting for. And I do not plan to sit on this till the morning," the eldest Tegan barked before waving the man off. "Yes, my lord." "Right away," the retainer said before quickly disappearing to carry out his orders. Once the retainer had left, Gertrude looked over to her elder brother. "Din? How do we know this is accurate? Didn't you say all of our people had been ordered to stand down for the evening?" "There's only one way to find out," Din replied, not to be dismayed by his sister's reluctance. It was Cervante who joined Gertrude's side to protest. "But what if this turns out to be a trap?" "If this is a trap, then we've already been had, and we need to retreat with our tails between our legs right now," Din growled, as he downed the contents of his glass in one long go. "But will we allow this chance to slip past our fingers when we're so close? I, for my part, will not. If any of you wish to give up your chance at glory and miss the opportunity of a lifetime, by all means. Return to the ship! I will see you tomorrow with my prize in hand." He could see some were swayed, but not Gertrude or Cervante. Letting out a sigh, he continued. "Is it so hard to believe there may be signs of intelligence here? Why can't it be that somebody is trying to get into our good graces?" "Without leaving a name for us to thank later," Cervante fired back quickly. "Or maybe the informant values discretion and will make themselves known to us once we have acted on the intel and not before," Din countered with a raised pointer finger. "My dear bro—" Gertrude started but was cut off. "No!" Din shouted. "We go now together, or I'll be the one to take all the glory and reward. Now who stands with me?" Din demanded. Reluctantly, Gertrude and Cervante joined him after exchanging a long, nervous glance. Their approval drew in the others, and soon all 8 Tigans were preparing to depart and capture the Staples family. The Tigans moved swiftly to get everything ready, not wasting any time now that the decision had been made and the smell of blood was in the proverbial water. Their armor was on and polished. Their weapons were loaded and stored. Their oversized escort was likewise ready to move. Their commander soon presented himself once more. "My Lord Din, everything is prepared. We are ready to move on your command." Din smiled smugly at the words and was about to give the order to move out when something caught his attention. There was a low rumbling sound in the distance, something like a train perhaps. Confusion began to spread through the group as more and more of them heard the sound and started to look around, trying to figure out the source of the noise. Dozens of vehicles with flashing lights rounded the bend toward the lodge. The roaring suddenly grew loud as a dozen tilt-rotor aircraft charged over a hillside behind them, searchlights beaming down on their location as local security forces swiftly closed in on the Tigan party. Some of their guards closed ranks around the bewildered Tigans, but generally they were waiting for orders, uncertain as to what was happening. "My lord!" "What do you want us to do?" cried the captain of their retainers. The Tigans themselves were looking to each other for answers, most eventually turning toward Din. "What's going on? What do we do? Should we run? Should we fight?" Their voices rose with growing fear as the questions came faster and more desperately, their attention snapping toward a larger flying aircraft that came into view. Frozen with indecision, the group held their ground as hundreds of armed personnel surrounded them on the ground and in the air. The larger vessel rumbled closer, finally making landfall not more than 100 meters from them. A hush fell over the Tegan group as a ramp lowered from the larger vessel. Descending down that ramp was a man in luxurious armor that gleamed in the lights of the nearby vehicles. He was flanked by several others, all of whom were sporting equally impressive attire. They were supported by dozens of Errante honor guard who poured around and pushed past the distinguished group, marching steadily their way. The second they stepped off the loading ramp to form a shield wall of men as they enclosed the Tegan party into an ever-shrinking mass of people. Din finally stood a little taller as the group neared, trying to appear more confident than he truly was. "I am Din Tegan, of the great house Tegan, and I demand to know what the purpose of this circus is this instant." Nobody initially responded. The honor guard in front stepped aside to let their lords through. The leader marched straight up to Din, only stopping at the last moment before he'd plow right into the eldest Tegan. When he did, a simple thought banished the effect on his visor that made it impossible to see through. It revealed the man in front to have an angry scowl and a very visible grouping of fresh claw marks across his face. But still, the man remained silent, glaring angrily at Din. The two men stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, before Din finally broke the silence with a question barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" The question was answered by a sudden and strong strike across Din's face, sending the man into a partial spin before he could recover. Din's family members took a single step forward to help him, but stopped in their tracks when every gun on the ground and in the air was prepared to fire on their position. For his part, Din snapped his attention back to the man who struck him with the fury of 1,000 men in his eyes. "I am Tegan Errante of House Errante, whom you and your party have just insulted with your presence, underhanded deeds, blatant disrespect for basic cordiality, and violation of protocols of proper conduct," the man growled angrily. "How dare you!" Din practically shouted back. "You of an upstart little minor house think you can—" His words were cut off when another hand came crashing into the side of his head again. "Did I give you permission to speak, Din of House Tegan?" Tegan yelled. "You arrive unannounced at my home and humiliate me in my house, yet claim to be respected." "Aye." This time, this slap caused Din to stagger as he nearly fell over. Seeing stars, the man shook his head to clear his vision before turning back toward his assailant once more, this time silently, his face frozen with utter shock. "You think you can come here to Volantis, a neutral planet, and assault a member of a neutral house, violating all rules of that neutrality to kidnap the family of a fellow nobleman, a dishonorable act in itself, and think you have the moral high ground to talk down to me because I am of a minor house?" Tegan stepped closer, moving toward Din's ear as if to whisper. "Tell me before you blabber on about how superior your house is to mine. What will they do knowing I have 8 members of their family as hostages due to your stupidity and breaking of the peace?" In the background, Gertrude, still clutching the tablet, angled her body to shield it from view, as if willing it to vanish from sight. Din's mouth was going dry under the onslaught of questions. Once finally allowed to speak, he stumbled on his words. They would probably ask, under what evidence would you dare accuse us of anything other than hunting? Which is exactly what we have been doing, he finished, trying to sound confident. They would denounce your actions here as barbaric, and your accusations a lie. Tegan scoffed before leaning in again to mockingly sniff. "Do you smell that?" he asked rhetorically, causing Din to suddenly look confused. "I smell the fear of a man whose life is flashing before his eyes, and he's suddenly realizing he won't have much of a future to make up for it." Turning away, Tegan yelled, "Honor guard! Seize them!"